combat. In some games, it's a cornerstone, in others, it's an afterthought. But regardless of its prevalence, one fact remains true. It takes time. With the math, the strategizing conversations, and visual descriptions, the time can really fly. And this is even all more compounded when you decide to try to add an extra enemy or two. What's up, everybody? My name is Steven, and this is Above the Table, where we like to talk about how to better run our games, and today I want to talk to you about combat, and what kinds of things we can do to smoothen or speed up certain parts on our end, so we can stay in the action and keep the story moving. Also, don't forget, if you enjoy the video and I can show you some helpful tips to help speed up your combat, smash that subscribe button and give the video a like, as it helps the channel out a ton and it's absolutely free. Without further ado, let's get into it. One of the most useful tricks I've found for speeding up combat is pre-rolled initiative. And it's exactly what it sounds like. Before the session, or even during prep, you roll multiple initiatives for your potential enemies and jot them down. Now, there are a couple different ways that you can use this. You can assign specific initiatives to specific enemies ahead of time, or you can create a pool of pre-rolled initiatives and assign them as needed based on how the encounter unfolds. Lastly, you can simply roll initiatives as you go and track them in order, and then work down that list as you come across any encounters throughout the session. This small step shaves off time at the table and keeps players in the action without slowing things down for the dice rolls. And if you never want to roll at all, you can even make yourself a simple initiative table, as seen here. This is great because it gives monsters static initiatives based on where they fall within your own classifications. Now, this option not only makes the initiative process a lot easier, but also turns into a mechanic similar to a check, where any given monster is essentially assigned a combat order DC. This still also lends well to rewarding those players who like to invest into their initiative scores in one way or another. We can even use things like the pooled initiative or the list of initiatives for our players, having them roll one or a few times before the session, and they are able to use their own pool to pull from. And since we're talking about static numbers, let's talk a moment about static damage. For those who don't know, or maybe forget, almost every D&D monster stat block from almost any publisher include static damage numbers. These are the numbers next to the dice roll information, and they represent the average damage that any given attack or ability will do based on dice rolls and the modifier. I've found a lot of luck using static monster damage in the past. It's fast, it's easy, and it keeps things moving along. But some people don't like how predictable static damage is, so there's a couple tricks you can use. The first one I will mention is courtesy of Michael Shea over at Sly Flourish. To add variance without a lot of work, you can simply subtract 3 from the static damage and then add a d6. This adds just enough variance to make the damage feel different, but only needs one single die, and then the math is very easy. For critical hits, double that static damage, subtract 3, and then roll a d6. But remember, with this, you really only need this trick if you're rolling monster damage that uses at least 2 dice. If it's a single die and a modifier, then subtracting 3 and adding another die doesn't really make things easier. But when a monster inflicts 2 or more dice worth of damage with something like a multi-attack, rolling all of those dice can slow things down. So you can use this trick to quickly come up with the numbers needed to move things along. And alternatively, my current favorite, if you want to forego rolling dice altogether and be able to quickly deliver damage numbers the moment you know you've hit, but you still don't want the number to always be the same, you can simply apply the static monster damage, but alternate between adding or subtracting said monster's proficiency bonus. Then you can just simply use something like a coin and flip it over back and forth to keep track of this. Additionally, you can also add in a round of just using the basic static damage. Then you have 3 rounds of differing numbers that are easy to pull from, and in a lot of games, most combats don't last much longer than 3 or 4 rounds outside of very special or particular ones where people are more likely to want to roll anyway. So now we've gotten into combat and we're delivering our attacks and damage numbers smoothly. Things are looking good. But what if you want to run with a lot of enemies? No, like a lot of enemies. We're talking hordes of goblins, waves of demons, and sitting in the thick of small-scale warfare. Because let's be honest, there's nothing more fun than watching the players' reactions when you place down 15, 20, or even as many as 50 miniatures down on the table. Nothing cracks me up more than when the side conversations suddenly come to a halt, as I am asked, okay, when are you going to stop putting minis down on the table? What the hell have we gotten ourselves into? And if you want a cheap, durable alternative to traditional miniatures that make it very accessible to have this many minis of one creature, check out our video on paper miniatures, linked above and in the description below. The first thing you're going to want to do is use some of the aforementioned tricks, but the next thing to make this easy as possible to handle at the table is to run with pooled monster health. This is a very common yet very helpful practice where you take all of the monsters within the encounter, or all of a specific type of monster, or at least the rough amount of what you're trying to represent, and you pool all of their health into one big health bar, or a couple of large ones to represent different groups. When creating this total, I recommend rounding to the nearest 5 or 0 to make adding things up very easy. And then from there are a few different ways we can go about this. First, we need to establish a damage threshold, and what it means. When dealing with mass hordes of enemies, of very small things, you might just describe or show a minion dying for each point of damage. Or if these creatures are a little bit hardier, we can just keep in mind our threshold that's meant to roughly represent one creature, and then remove minis off of the table, or certain groups of them from the combat as we hit our threshold. Now, one thing you might run into with this is, yes, some creatures will take more or less damage to die. Not every player is going to notice this, but some will. But that's okay, because narratively speaking, these enemies can die from various levels of wounds in different areas. And that's the thing, this does just take a more narrative-forward approach with combat, but in a large part, that's what all of these rules are trying to do, right? Get us back to the story and how it's being shaped both in and around these combats. And well, that just about wraps up today's video, but I gotta know, what do you think? Do you run any custom forms of initiative? Have you ever relied on more static damage system? Or do you like to throw your players up against small armies? If you have any experiences with these, or your own ways of doing so, let me know down in the comments below so we can keep this conversation going. I always love hearing your guys' ideas. And don't forget, if you found this video interesting or helpful in any way, please smash that subscribe button and give the video a like, as it helps the channel out a ton. And if you'd like to go the extra mile in supporting the channel, we do now have channel memberships available here on YouTube. I'm still in the process of setting things up and figuring out what, if anything, I can currently offer as a token of my appreciation, given my current workload. For now, I can at least promise a shout out, but as the channel grows more, I hope to be able to dedicate more time to creating even more for you all. That said, please don't feel obligated. This is just something I've been asked about, and it's very new to me, so I'm just giving it a shot and adjusting and exploring it as we go. To any future members, thank you for your support. It truly means the world, and every bit will go right back into making our channel and our videos even better. With all of that said, thanks guys, and I'll see you on the next one.